Are you too plagued with thoughts of Arcane? The newest season drops in about less than 8 hours. It's exciting. It's fun. I'm very excited. I have a theory, and unfortunately, it kind of dawned on me. This is really the last chance I'm going to be able to theorize about Arcane, and I've never really joined the theoryscape. I've never done anything, like recording a video and yapping forever, making a true theory about something like this that wasn't related to academia specifically. Because trust me, I have theories on Shakespeare that got me through so many essays just by acting crazy. Also, if you hear shenanigans, it is my dog. He might join us on the couch in a little while. So that being said, hi, my name's Taylor. Welcome to my first video, and it's gonna be this little arcane theory, and I don't know what will come next. I don't know when will come next. But if you like me, if you like what I have to say, if you're interested in seeing where any of this adventure goes, if you're a friend, maybe you want to hang out. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, so let's get into what I'm thinking, right? Because I've seen a lot of conversations about Arcane, what's gonna happen next, and I'm not seeing anyone talk about this specific connection that I've been thinking of in my head. Now, I want to talk about Singed and Orianna and Victor and Noxus and what all of that is and what all of that means and how it's all connected and how I see it. So, what if Arcane's most mysterious character has a secret past related to Orianna and to Victor? Now, we already know what the past is to Victor. That's not a secret necessarily. But what if there's something in that backstory with Victor related to Orianna that we're not seeing? So, I believe that Singed could be Corin Reveck, who, if you don't know, in the League of Legends lore, is Orianna's father figure, who does, I believe it's toys that he works on. I didn't put it in my notes. That's what I'm looking at down here. If you see me glancing down here, it is my notes to keep me on track, because if I don't have notes, I will yap for hours. Corin Reveck, I believe he was a toy maker, and then Orianna went down to the Fissures and got incredibly sick from the toxins because she was from Piltover, and slowly had to start replacing body parts with mechanical bits. And eventually they did move to Zon because Corin Reveck needed space away from the regulations of Piltover in order to continue to keep his daughter alive. To kind of start and set this up. So Singed, we all know it's Singed. We can look at him and we can say, okay, this is the League of Legends character Singed. However, if you actually listen to the language around him and when they're talking about him, he's never actually named. At least to my knowledge, when I recently watched through it again, they never actually name him. They call him the Doctor. I got a text. They call him the Doctor. And his true name has not yet been revealed. And the thing with being called Singed is we see the lab accident that causes him to be physically, literally singed. It's more so of a moniker of identity. This is the Singed Man, than it is necessarily a name that he was born with. And if it is a name that he's born with, one, that has not been revealed, but two, it would be incredibly ironic if a mother decided to name her child Burned, basically, and then he got massively chemically burned. So I guess my thesis statement, if I were really to sum it up, would be that Singed's true identity, if we were to give him a name, is Corin Reveck, Orianna's father from the League of Legends lore, and he became singed and lost himself after the lab accident and lost himself as he lost Orianna. For that particular part of the theory, I would like to set up two kind of main pieces of evidence, which is to say, as far as initial evidence for this and why I kind of noticed this was that there was the absence of the real name, but also he's holding the locket at the end of season 1. And that silhouette, if you look and compare particularly the hairstyle and the styling of the bangs with the bun, It resembles very much the robotic hairstyle of Orianna within her League of Legends splash art, which assumedly is based off of the real Orianna's hair. How does this all actually factually work in Jigsaw together? I'm just kind of saying a lot of things like, yeah, this would be really, really cool, but how does it actually all fit together? So let's talk about Corin Reveck himself. His identity within the lore is originally as an artificer in Piltover, which artificers are basically other inventors, magic inventors, hex tech inventors. It could mean a broad spectrum of things when it comes to Piltover, considering how magic and technology is increasingly intertwined. He sacrificed everything to save Orianna, this much we know throughout the lore. However, we then have an additional piece that's not necessarily within League of Legends lore, but is instead within Convergence. Now, we don't know the true canonicity between Convergence, League of Legends, and Arcane. We know that Arcane is canon going forward, and that League of Legends will be, and Legends of Runeterra will be rewritten around this. I assume Legends of Runeterra is kind of already on top of these changes, because when we look at champions like Janna, for example, you can kind of see that she is incredibly different and updated in comparison to her League of Legends comparison. So, Convergence, to really kind of get back to the point, that's where Corin first really appears as an NPC that we can talk to, because he's not a champion or anything, so he's finally tangible for us. And he's in Zaun. So at some point, Corin left Piltover to go to Zaun, assumedly because the technology that was available in Piltover was not enough, nor experimental enough, nor as developed as Singe necessarily needed it to be, so that way Orianna could survive. Know that Corin has a connection to Echo, if Convergence is canon, which is a very big if. We don't know, but we'll see what happens. Corin has a connection to Echo and the Firelights, which we know is getting a much heavier emphasis, and that Heimerdinger in particular is going to be with the Firelights now, after this. And you're saying to me, Taylor, what are you talking about? You're talking about how Corin was with the Firelights, but Singe is obviously with Silco. At some point, they need to meet. And I think someone as manipulative as Silco that we've seen in the show, I think he would be able to manipulate a father who cared very much for his daughter. I think we already saw that with Marcus and his little girl. I think Silco is very adept at pinpointing insecurities, and particularly Arcane always does focus on this father-daughter bond, which I find incredibly interesting and impactful, all the different ways that they're able to kind of intersect it. So I don't think it would be too much to say that at some point after Convergence, after Corin really got involved with Echo and his story within Convergence, no spoilers here, but he's there, I think it could be said that Silco could meet him after that. It took a while for Marcus to discover Silco. I don't think Corin would immediately descend into Zaun and Silco would just be right there and say, hey, would you like to, do evil with me? I don't think that's how it go. I think it would be a lot more tactile. I think Silco would potentially learn of what Corin had been doing with Orianna and potentially helped to kickstart the production of Shimmer as a way to save Orianna. I think this would slowly kind of push Corin towards that cruelty that we see in Singed. And I think in the same way that he encourages the monster in someone like Deckard, or wants to encourage a monster in Vander. I'm very excited to see where that goes. It's Warwick, but who knows? I think that Silco would be the person to relate to a father on the brink of keeping his daughter alive and know exactly how to manipulate that person to join his ranks, essentially, and push him to the darker side of scientific pursuits in the name of keeping your daughter alive. Let's pivot a little bit, just a little bit. I want to talk about Noxus for a second. Noxus is really gonna be a center point for Arcane Season 2. And I think that there is a way that this can fit in with the lore already laid out for Singed. So if you don't know, within League of Legends lore, Singed is a nasty, disgusting, horrible man. He has committed atrocities. There are amazing short stories about the horrible things that he's done, the torturing of different men. I believe there's a couple stories about those, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm uncomfortable. I smile when I'm nervous, because I was always told that if you're ever like in pain or something when you're on stage, you have to smile through it. And so now whenever I'm nervous, I smile because I'm like, they can't know. So he's a horrible, abhorrent man. How does someone like Corin get there? I think that's part of what we're going to see. I think what we're going to see is Singe slowly gain a connection to Noxus, because Noxus is finally breached into Piltover, and from what I'm gaining, within the lore, one of Singe's massive crimes is arming Noxus with chemical weapons in the war and invasion against Ionia, which they lost. But that obviously hasn't happened yet. If it did, it would have been brought up. It would be relevant information. It would be something already factored into Season 2. We would have gotten a hint. But Singe shows no signs of relationship to Noxus, nor does Noxus have any sort of acknowledgement of Singed, because they are coming there specifically to go after the Hextech. And along with that is the emerging power of Chemtech and Shimmer. So I imagine what's going to happen is that Mbessa is going to fail at getting her hands on the Hextech and is going to go after the Chemtech. I might be wrong about that, but that would give her an excellent connection to go talk to Singed. I think that would be a good final moment in his descent into monstrosity. So let's pivot again. Let's pivot back to Arcane and Victor. Let's talk about Victor. If you know me in real life, you know that Victor is one of my favorite characters in Arcane. Was not one of my favorite characters in League. I've played League of Legends since Season 4. Did not like Victor that much. He kind of scared me, if I'm quite honest. I did not know what the Glorious Evolution even meant. I couldn't really piece together his lore very well from what I had. He was replacing people with machine parts, and that's all I got. He wasn't really my favorite, but now he's so fleshed out. They've given him this wonderful backstory and this wonderful companionship, yet sort of a academic rivalry between Jace and Victor, where Victor and him have opposing ideals, and I just think it's incredibly interesting and wonderful. So let's talk about Victor. Victor and Singed are introduced in Arcane together through this mutated creature, Rio. They have this quote-unquote understanding that genius creates loneliness, and to quote Singed, the mutation must survive. They bond over this, supposedly, and Victor's exposure to this influences his future path, especially as he starts to question physical limitations and goes further into the Hex Core. But what of that mutated creature? Rio is an anagram of Ori, which could be a sweet, affectionate name for Orianna. I know when I play her. Orianna is one of my favorite characters, by the way, so I definitely have Orianna bias. Orianna is one of my favorite characters, and so I will say Ori, and I'll be like, I want to play Ori. I don't think it's impossible that Rio could just be a rearranging of Orianna or Ori, twisted and kind of projected onto this mutation that Singed is trying to preserve, potentially as a way to, one, start creating Shimmer. I do believe that the creature is how Shimmer was, if not created from, then propagated within. And I do believe that it was a part of Singed delving into these less ethical sciences in order to save Orianna. I do believe that Shimmer is related to that. I think that Singed could possibly use Rio as an outlet for grief to repair or revive Orianna, because the whole point of Orianna is that she becomes so much metal that she is essentially inhuman. They replace her heart, there is nothing left that is flesh about her. Quickly, to go back to Victor, I think that he learned from Singe's very radical mindset and could embrace the idea of evolution at any cost, eventually transforming him into the Machine Herald that we love very dearly. And I think it's less of, me thinking that, and more so, how are the writers of Arcane going to pull this off? Because I think we all know. I think we all know exactly where this is going. It's just a matter of how do we get there. The journey is more important than the destination in this, right? I think that Victor's trajectory mimics Singed, starting with incredibly noble intentions of saving lives, Singed wanted to save his daughter. I think that these are incredibly noble pursuits, and I think that both of them started out that way. And then slowly over time, Singed due to Silco, and then Victor due to Singed, slowly over time kind of degraded into this very at all costs, regardless of ethics and morals kind of mindset. The pursuit of a greater purpose, regardless of what harm it may bring, so long as the overall outcome is positive. So, now that I've kind of laid out all the details, what exactly does this mean? What exactly am I saying? I think that Corin Reveck is Singed. I think that there's a reason we haven't learned his true name. I think that Singed is a moniker or some sort of otherwise gifted title, potentially a nickname. I think that Corin fell out with those in Piltover, particularly Heimerdinger, as Singed is seen quoting in Arcane, because of Orianna, because he was willing to do what it takes to save his daughter, in cultivating something like Rio. As he continues to cultivate this mutation in order to save his daughter, he becomes increasingly more and more desperate, creates Shimmer, and loses himself. And I think Silco is the one that propagates that, because we see that it's not the descent into Zon. We see in Convergence that he lives in Zon peacefully for a while. He stays Corin, but the perfect one to manipulate him to the other side is lurking in the shadows waiting, and has perfected this speech more than likely multiple times, as we've seen how easily he does with Marcus. There is no greater burden than that of a daughter. And I think Singed is a mirror of that, in the same way that Silco and Vander are. So to sum up, if I were to really say, what do I think is going to happen in season 2? Where do I think all of these details and all these little bits are going to go, right? Let's talk about it. I think the Doctor is going to be unveiled as Corin Reveck. I think that we're going to get the entire transition story. I think we're going to get the fallout with Heimerdinger. I think we're going to not necessarily get a major focus on Orianna herself, but more so on the descent that Corin has gone through as Orianna's transition has changed his life, and see exactly what he has done and what he has sacrificed in order to save her. And I think that Victor's growing alliance with Singed, with Corin, I think together they're going to power up Noxus. We see Victor with the Hex Core and what it's done to him physically, and while we don't know how he gets there, we know what he becomes. We don't know what it'll look like in the show, because it has been confirmed that his design has been updated, but we know what he's going to become. And Singed is the one who allowed his body to change, so that way that change into the Machine Herald could take place. We already see pictures of Ambessa in this rounded area that's very obviously the Hex Core. I mean, if you look at the Hex Core, and then you look at the background of that particular shot of Ambessa holding out her spear, I think it's very obvious to see where exactly she is. The Hex Core, something is going to happen. The Hex Core will get big enough that people can be inside of it. It can be invaded. And I think the reason Ambessa is going to go after that particular technology is because of what will eventually happen with Ionia. I think that Hextech and Corin Reveck, Victor in particular, Singed slash Corin and Victor, I think there's going to be a connection there, and that Ambessa invading the Hex Core, or whatever the Hex Core becomes, whatever that area is, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think we're about to see the beginning of Noxus's invasion into Ionia and how they got the power they did to exterminate as many people as they did. If I were to sum it all up in one final sentence, Corin Reveck is Singed. Singed is Orianna's father, and like Singed, willing to do anything to protect his daughter, Victor will become increasingly desperate to save himself with the Hex Core. I want to know what you think. Do you think Singed could be Orianna's father, or do you think that I'm absolutely crazy? And do you think Victor is destined to kind of repeat the follies of his mentor? Do you think that these stories are mirrors of each other in the same way that I kind of do? Let me know what you think down below. And also let me know what you think about this essay. I made an outline, obviously, but otherwise it was relatively unscripted and I just kind of yapped. And I realize that my points may not be entirely succinct if I am just yapping, even if I'm going through my bullet points. So please feel free to engage in some discussion with me in the comments below. Feel free to ask questions if you feel I did not explain anything more. And also feel free to give me any sort of advice on how to improve the quality of my videos or anything. Obviously, this is my first one, and so I'm very new at this, and I'm just trying to figure things out. So if you have any advice on how to improve, let me know. With all that being said, I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you are as excited for Arcane as I am, and I will see you at some point with something, some form of content. I don't know what I'm doing after this. It might be a makeup tutorial, it might be a song, it might be a vlog, it might be pictures of my dog. You'll just have to wait and see, because I don't even know what the plan is. I'm just here to have fun and make videos and just kind of do what I want. And if you are down to join that journey with me, I encourage you to subscribe, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it. Either way, I appreciate that you spent your time here with me today. I hope you know that you are loved and valid and enough, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. I know I will definitely be back after the season has dropped, so that way we can all talk about it. So, see you in the future.